सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मिष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Change this 1 second. Okay, there is a mistake in the date of the class. We'll change it later. So, after presenting the preliminaries, Shankaracharya has introduced the dialogue between the student and the teacher. So the entire teaching is going to be given in the form of a dialogue. So the student addresses the teacher in these two shlokas 21 and 22. In shloka 21, we saw Durvara Samsara Davagni Taptam Dodhuyamanam Duradrushtavataihi Bhita Prapannam Paripahi Mrityoho Sharanyamanyam Yadaham Na Jane. So in fact, somebody asked me about Dodhuyamanam, which is trembling, shaking, right, or being tossed about. And it's for the people who know grammar, it is a Yanganta usage, right? So a frequentative usage. So the student expressed his intense experience of samsara. He has understood that self-knowledge alone is the solution and that the guru alone can help him in this particular situation. And since there is no other escape or no other possible solution, he says, hey, Guru, I'm surrendering on to you. And he also points out the greatness of the Guru in front as well as all the spiritual teachers in the universe. He says they are all rare rescuers of samsara, and they have rescued the samsaris, and having crossed over samsara themselves, the Gurus dedicate their life for helping others to cross over samsara. And the cheer and joy, right, they get by sharing this knowledge and by giving that cheer and joy to others, not only by their presence, but through their teaching, right? So they give permanent happiness that way. And thus, the student glorifies the teacher in the 22nd verse also, and then awaits the response of the teacher. So we completed Shanta Mahanto Nivasanti Santaha Vasantavallokhitam Charantah Tirna Swayam Bhima Bhavarnavam Janan Ahetu Nanyan Apitarayantaha. In the last class we completed. So we now have to see what the Guru is responding. So Guru Vacha, this has been, these slides are there just to make sure that you understand the transition from the Shishya speaking to the Guru speaking. It is not there in the original Vivekachudamani. I just wanted to remind you. Ma bhaishta vidvamstavanastyapayah.
Ma bhaishta vidvamstavanastyapayah.
Samsara sindhostarane stupayah.
Samsara sindhostarane stupayah.
Enaiva yata yatayosya param.
Yenaiva yata yatayosya param.
Tameva margam tava nirdishami.
Tameva margam tava nirdishami.
So, Sri Guru Vacha, Guru is responding to the great relief of the student. First of all, the Guru is accepting the seeker as a student and takes charge of his spiritual sadhana. He says, I know the way out of samsara. It is not a new one. It has been given by the Veda, even at the beginning of the creation itself. It has been followed by many people before, and they have solved the problem of samsara. It is a time-tested solution. I know the solution and I will hand over that to you. You can also become free from samsara. Thus, the Guru gives a very big encouraging promise to the student. So he addresses the student. Vidwan, right? Vidvam, stava is there. When you do a split, it becomes vidwan and tava. So vidwan is sambodhana, addressing. In Sanskrit, you address the student, right? That is called sambodhana. Oh, intelligent student, informed student. So here we find that the student is very well informed. He is understood that self-knowledge alone is the solution. So the Guru addresses him, oh, intelligent, informed student, Ma Bhaishta, right? We have to read it actually as Abhaishta. Abhaishta is derived from the root bhibheti, to be scared or frightened. So Abhaishta is the lung form, and because of a grammar rule, it has become Bhaishta. And this is a slightly tricky sutra in the presence of those of you who are knowledgeable. In the presence of the avyaya ma, the lung lakara is used here, and therefore it is ma bhaishta, right? So we just take it as, don't be frightened. So don't be scared of samsara anymore. Relax. Tava upayaha na asti. You are out of danger, right? And because I'm going to help you out, tava apayaha nasti. There is no more danger for you. Samsara sindo tarane asti upayaha. There is a method or a way to cross over the samsara, right? Samsara sindhu, the ocean of samsara. Often samsara, the human bondage, is compared to an ocean to indicate the vastness as well as the depth and the varieties of dangers which lurk inside the ocean, right? So it's often compared in Shastra, you will see that, right? So samsara sindhoho tarane. So to cross over the ocean of samsara, upayaha asti. There is a definite cure. You need not find it. It is already there, right? Tam eva margam tava nirdishami. I shall certainly show you, teach you that remedy or that solution. Tam eva margam. The same solution, the same remedy, the same spiritual path, right? Ena eva yatayaha asya param. Ena eva yatayaha yata. By spreading such a spiritual path, many acharyas, many jnanis have crossed over the ocean of samsara. Asya means samsara sindhoho param. Param. Param means shore of the samsara sagara. Yatayaha means they have reached, right? Yatayaha is the wise people, and yataha means they have reached. Yataha is like yadatu, and it is the ikta pratyaya, so yataha. So the yatihi means, yatihi is a sannyasi, a person of monastic order. So the word yatihi etymologically means a person who puts forth committed effort. Yatate iti yatihi, right? So whoever works hard for attaining moksha, such a person is yatihi. So here it is referring to a sannyasi. The meaning, right, the sannyasi is given because generally a sannyasi is one who has renounced everything to exclusively work for moksha. So that dedication of a sannyasi is indicated by the word yatihi. Whoever has got that sincerity and dedication, he or she can be called yatihi. Even a householder can be yatihi if he or she is sincere and committed. So all such committed people have crossed over the samsara, not after death, but even while living, they have found the shore, the moksha. So yatayaha ena margena asya samsarasya param yataha. So tam margam, tam upayam, tava nirdishami. Whatever method the committed people followed and crossed over the ocean and reached the shore, that path I will show you, take you through. Therefore, relax, right? And listen to me very carefully, says the Guru. So hereafter, the real core Vedanta is going to follow. So both the student and the teacher will have to apply the mind, and we have to work hard to grasp these concepts, right? So, Mabhaishta vidvam stavanastya payaha samsara sindhos taranestupayaha enaiva yata yatayosya param tameva margam tava nirdishami. Ajnanayogat paramatmanastava
अज्ञानयोगात् परमात्मनस्तव
ह्यनात्मबन्धस्ततैव संसृतिः.
ह्यनात्मबन्धस्तत एव संसृतिः.
Tayorvivekoditabodhavannihi
तयोर्विवेकोदितबोधवह्निः
Ajnanakaryam pradahet samulam.
अज्ञानकार्यं प्रदहेत् समूलम्.
It's a very, very profound verse, which is the foundation of the entire teaching that follows. Right? It is worth remembering. In the first line of the verse, the teacher is diagnosing the problem and referring to the samsarasya karanam, cause of samsara, in a very, very cryptic, brief manner. Why? Because the rest of the shlokas are going to follow. Right? He also talks about the solution which he proposes to give through the following teaching. So samsarasya karanam in the first line and samsara nivritti upayaha in the second line. Since it is a very cryptic and brief verse, we have to do a little bit of, background details we'll have to study before we get into this verse proper. So in Vedanta Shastra, the entire universe is broadly divided into two portions or parts. So twofold classification. They are Atma and Anatma. So the word Atma means I or self. So the first person singular expressed by the word I in English or expressed by the word self, right? I, self, myself. This is Atma. And Anatma is everything in the creation other than me, the self. So Anatma, we can roughly translate as non-self. Okay? Non-self, not the self. Thus, there is a self and there's a non-self. I, the self, who's a conscious being, who's the experiencer of the entire universe as an object of experience. Therefore, Anatma can be called an object of experience. When I say objects, it includes all things in the world, plus it includes all the beings, all other animals, men, women, everything. So object is another translation of Anatma. So I am a conscious being, the experiencer, the knower, the awarer, which can be roughly translated as subject. Thus, Atma and Anatma, subject and object, experiencer and experienced. So these are two broad divisions of the entire universe. When I refer to the self that is me, what are the things included in that me? Right? I know I'm a conscious being, which includes what? This physical body, it includes the mind, it includes the sense organ. All these body, mind, sense, complex are all included in meaning of the word I. I is a composite entity which includes the body, mind, sense complex. So when the body is born, what do I say? I am born. When the sense organs perceive, I say I perceive. When the mind is confused, I say I am confused. When I'm angry, I say I am angry. Right? So using the word I for body, mind complex, very, very common. That's what we're used to. Thus, Atma means I, which includes the body, mind, sense complex. And Anatma refers to the entire cosmos, which includes the known and the unknown. Because the unknown can be some future objects, some distant galaxy you take. That's also a future object where we may go, right? That is also Anatma. They are not known now, but they are knowable and experienceable later. So we don't have any issues or doubts about this classification. But Vedanta introduces an issue about this particular topic. What is this? Vedanta asks a subject, right? Vedanta is asking a question about the subject. So what is Vedanta saying? Do the body, mind, sense complex fall within Atma, the subject, or really do they belong to Anatma, the object? So huge controversy is created by the Veda. The first few years of the Vedantic journey just goes in sorting this out, right? And depending on how much you are involved and running in the materialistic world, that much longer it takes, right? To just discern this. So with regard to say the wall or table or computer or mic, there's no confusion. Everybody knows they are all objects. The new debated issue, the debate created by Vedanta is whether the body mind sense complex will come under subject or object, Atma or Anatma. And when Vedanta raises the issue, what happens? We are shocked initially because we have never thought about this in the first place, right? So where is the doubt will be our reaction. We wonder because all of us are very sure that I am this body, right? I have a mind, I am the mind, all of that, right? So the mind is I, the Atma. The sense organs are I, the Atma. There's no doubt. Not only for me, no human being has got any doubt regarding this. It's a very well settled issue, and you wonder why is Vedanta raising this, right? Vedanta raises this topic because it differs from our conclusion. To our big surprise, Vedanta asserts that the body-mind sense complex does not belong to I, the Atma, the subject. They all belong only to Anatma, the objective universe only. And Vedanta says that you have mistakenly misappropriated, right, a part of Anatma and added it to the Atma. I was debating so much today whether I should, represent this pictorically. And then in the evening, I said, no, I'm not going to do this. Okay. So there is an Anatma part, which all of us are clear, no doubts. That's the world, animals, father, mother, brother, sister, all of that, right? Which is on one side, at least the rest of the world, the external world. Then Vedanta is saying your body, mind, sense complex also should have been there, but you have misappropriated it, right? And you have drawn a wrong boundary. It tells you that, right? So Vedanta introduces this saying there is a clear demarcation between Atma and Anatma. While demarcating the boundary, the body should have been on the Anatma side, but you have put it in the Atma side, right? We say body should be included in Aida Atma, but Vedanta says it belongs to Anatma. So when we ask, how do you say that, right? So the entire humanity understands only this way. So why are you saying something differently, right? So the question here is, if you think, right, for many, many centuries, we kept saying the earth is flat, right? And similarly, we said the sun is going around the earth. And there have been people who have been prosecuted, right, for telling the truth, right? They've ridiculed the person, the scientist, etc. So here Vedanta says the entire humanity is confused, or 99% of the humanity is confused, right? Vedanta asserts that the entire humanity is confused because of the ignorance regarding the boundary line between Atma and Anatma. So there is a self-ignorance because of which there is a self-mistake because of not setting this boundary correctly. And according to Vedanta, it is a very serious problem. And all our samsara is only because of not settling this issue. Why? Because this boundary, when it is not clear, all the consequent problems are arising. Because of this, you will see, which is called samsara, will happen. So this is the first background information that we should have when we are going to enter this next stage of discussion. So Atma, Anatma boundary non-settlement and the consequently differing views. So the Atma, it is viewed by us in one way, right? And it is viewed by Vedanta in another way. This means there are two versions of the Atma. Okay. So first we said Atma and Anatma. Now we are, what am I saying? This Atma itself, there are two versions because of the difference in perception. The version of the general humanity, the samsaris, and the version of the Vedantins. So what is the difference? The version of Atma, that is our version of Atma, includes the body, mind, sense complex. I am a conscious being means we include the body, mind, sense complex. That only makes me a human being. Thus, there is one Atma which includes the body, mind, sense complex. And then there is another Atma, the Atma of Vedanta, which firmly excludes them. So we require two adjectives to qualify this. So the first adjective where we include the body, mind, sense complex, we refer to that as generally as Jivatma. And in this shloka, the Vedantic version is given. So the version of Atma which excludes the body, mind, sense complex. And here it is called Parama Atma, right? The real Atma, the rightly understood Atma. So the Vedantic version of the real Atma, the rightly understood Atma, is called Parama Atma. So the real I, the real subject, real self, right? So I with a capital I, if you want to differentiate. So the other version, which is mistaken by humanity, is called Jiva Atma, the misunderstood, mistaken I, which includes, or you can put it as small I, includes the body, mind, sense complex. Now, this I, as I said, is Jiva Atma according to the ordinary people, and Paramatma is the one that the Vedanta is referring to, right, as the real Atma. So there is confusion born out of ignorance. This much we must understand as contextually, right, to understand the rest of the meanings. So, Paramatmanaha tava ajnana yogadhi anatma bandhaha tataha eva samskritihi. Right? So let's split this into simpler portions. So tava paramatmanaha meaning basically tvam paramaha atma asi. That is, you are actually Paramatma, a conscious being which excludes body, mind, sense complex. Right? You are the Paramatma. Then the next sentence is Tava Ajnana Yogaha Asti. You are now associated with self-ignorance. That means you are ignorant of your Paramatma nature, the real version, right? So, because you are with the ignorance, therefore you do not know, right? And this boundary change has happened and the misappropriation has happened. Then Anatma Bandhaha. So you have connected, you have included, or you have identified, right, the Anatma along with you. So you have mistakenly included the body, mind, sense complex also into yourself, which means when the body is mortal, you will never say my body is mortal. You will rather say I am mortal. So your self perspective has totally changed because of ignorance. So I am a mortal is your conclusion. Then tataha eva samskritihi. Because of misappropriation, because of this misidentification, you are facing the first problem called mortality. Because when the body is growing old, you say, I'm growing old, I'm frightened, right? The fear of death, old age, emotional problems, right? All of this. It has a cascading effect. Several emotional issues come up. And the most fundamental issue being fear. So, tata eva, because of the fundamental mistake of ajnanam, adhyasa or misconception arises. And adhyasa has produced a false version of the Atma. Thus, ajnanam and adhyasa have generated a false version of Atma, which is called Jivatma. So, adhyasa is basically misconception. So, the false version is called Jivatma, which is now suffering from samsara. So, the word samskritihi means samsara. Up to this is the diagnosis of the problem. So self-ignorance and self-mistake, right, or self-misconception are the fundamental causes for all forms of human struggles. So self-ignorance is called ajnanam or avidya, and self-misconception is called adhyasaha. Very important two words. Self-ignorance is called ajnanam or avidya. Self-misconception is called adhyasaha. So Shankaracharya writes a wonderful introduction to his Brahma Sutra commentary. It is called Adhyasa Bhashyam. In several pages, he actually establishes that Adhyasa is a human problem and Vedanta will become meaningful only if you have experienced and accepted that this is a real problem. So for this short Adhyasa Bhashyam, so many sub-commentators, they have written commentaries, sub-commentaries, sub-commentaries, etc. In fact, Swamiji is going to teach Brahma Sutra Bhashyam, at least the Chatussutri, starting maybe in a few months, and he will be covering Adhyasa Bhashyam and Shankaracharya's entire commentary, supported by other commentaries, he will be covering. Of course, this is a little advanced concept, right, for understanding. So, very simple, this adhyasa will go away how? Only by the removal of ajnanam. And how will ajnanam go away? Only through jnana, right? So, understanding the real boundary between atma and anatma. What is the subject? What is the object? What is the meaning of the word I, the self? What is the meaning of the word world? So that boundary line must be clearly demarcated. And this is what normally Swamiji talks about switching to binary format. He often uses this word binary format. That means having clarity between Atma and Anatma. What is the triangular format? When Swamiji says, of course, here it's not relevant. When Swamiji uses the term triangular format, it is always Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. Right? Here we are not talking about that. Some other occasion I'll speak about that. The binary format is first discerning Atma and Anatma correctly and stopping to misappropriate. Right? So, in Advaita Pancharatnam, right, there is a very beautiful shloka. Rajvajnanad bhati rajjau yathahihi smatmajnanad atmano jiva bhavaha aptokyahi bhranti nashe sarajjur jivo naham deshikoktya shivoham. So, due to ignorance, I think that a rope is a snake. Due to absence of jnana, I ascribe life to this lifeless thing. And then I realize, and when one points it out, I wake up from this illusion and understand that is actually a rope and not a snake. Similarly, I am not the Jiva, but here Shiva, the auspicious one, which is the Atma, which I understand only by the teaching of the great teacher, right? So, Deshikaha. So, thus the Jivatma is a wrong version. It has to be dismantled. So, once the Jivatma is dismantled, once the ignorance and misconception are gone, life is really relaxed, right? So in Kathopanishad, we see Tesham Sukham Shashwatam Netaresham, and then Tesham Shantihi Shashwati Netaresham in 2 to 12 and 13 of Kathopanishad, which we saw in the Upanishad classes, right? Sukham and Shanti. So the Atma Anatma demarcation is basically our spiritual project, right? So therefore he says, Tayoho Viveka Udita Bodha Vannihi Ajnana Karyam Samulam Pradahet. Right? Tayoho means between Atma and Anatma. Right? So there is only one Atma, which is Paramatma, which is now called Jivatma by the ignorant human beings. That Atma, understood and misunderstood Atma, which is originally one. Right? That Viveka between Atma and Anatma, the clear discrimination, right? That is what is discussed here as the Bodha, the knowledge. So this is the primary exercise the teacher undertakes to make sure that the student is able to discern Atma and Anatma, Atma, Anatma, Vivekaha. So the Viveka indicates the process of discernment or discrimination, which is basically consistent and systematic study and several classes, several months, several years. Initially, we were not able to accept it. Slowly, we see the point and we understand, right? Very slowly, things like today, nobody will question that the earth is moving around the sun, right? Nobody questions that, but it wouldn't have been that case several hundreds or thousands of years ago. So the student is going to take a long time, and the process of getting the knowledge is called Viveka, right? So this is self-knowledge, and they call it self-realization. People use all kinds of terms like realization, enlightenment, etc. Enlightenment, etc. But Viveka is nothing but clean knowledge or understanding based on scriptural study, right? So Viveka Udita Bodha, the self-knowledge born out of this self-discriminative inquiry is like Vannihi or fire, right? So from two angles you can understand. Fire being luminous, it will remove the darkness. Similarly, knowledge will remove darkness and ignorance. And the second function of the fire is it is burning down everything, right? So here Ajnana Karyam Pradahet Samulam will burn down the entire samsara, not just the samsara, all our karmas also. Punyams, papams, sanchita, agami, prarabdha, all are destroyed by Atmajnanam. Thus, knowledge like fire will dispel the darkness of ignorance and it will destroy all our problems called samsara. Therefore, tayoho viveka udita bodha vannihi, that fire, right, will burn down totally. Pradahet means burn down totally, right? So, in the Gita, if you remember, there's a direct verse here, 437. Yathaidamsi samidhognihi basmasat kurute Arjuna Jnanagnis sarva karmani basmasat kurute tatha. So pradahet means destroys, ajnana karyam, the product of ignorance, right? So self-ignorance, self-misconception, all of them are destroyed. So self misconception alone has given rise to the Jiva Bhava or the Jivatma version of me. So once I know I am not Jivatma, I will know I am the Atma. Right? So Jivo Naham Deshikotya Shivoham in Advaita Pancharatnam, what we see, right? Here the Deshika is the Guru, right? The Guru is the one who helps. So therefore, Ajnana Karyam means Jivatma Bhavaha, the fake version of Atma, Pradahed is destroyed, Samulam, not just the misconception, but its root cause. So ignorance, Ajnana Karyam. So Ajnanena Saha, both are destroyed, the self-ignorance and the self-misconception, right? So then I will know I am Paramatma. Within my mind, I will be very cool, calm, and composed. So this remedy involves a huge project. It's an intellectual exercise. And many people say, oh, it's only an intellectual exercise. And this Parampara, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, our Swamiji, very clear. Almost every class they will insist, this is pure understanding. It is knowledge. It is inquiry, right? There is nothing mystic about it, right? So the Guru has introduced several new words in this shloka, right? Ajnana yogat paramatmanastava Jnanatma bandhastataeva samsritihi tayor vivekodita bodhavannihi ajnana karyam pradahet samulam. Right? So, therefore, the Shishya says some of the words you have used, like they are jargons, right? So, I would like to understand these. So, with this statement, the student is going to raise 7 questions in the following verses. Okay, we will read. को नाम बन्धः कथमेष आगतः
को नाम बन्धः कथमेष आगतः
कथं प्रतिष्ठास्य कथं विमोक्षः
कथं प्रतिष्ठास्य कथं विमोक्षः
को सावनात्मा परमः क आत्मा
को सावनात्मा परमः क आत्मा
तयोर्विवेकः कथमेतदुच्यताम्.
तयोर्विवेकः कथमेतदुच्यताम्.
So the Shishya is asking the following 7 questions, right? So what are they? This is the split version, but I will show it to you in a different format so that it is easy for us to go through. So question number 1, ko nama bandhaha. So in the previous word, the teacher had used the word anatma bandhaha. So literally the word bandhaha means bondage or shackles. And by shackles, normally we refer to some physical restraint. So the literal meaning is that in Vedanta, it is not a physical, tangible shackle, but it is an intangible shackle. So we have to understand correctly. So here the student asks, because he doesn't see any physical binding or shackles, right? He is able to freely walk and prostrate to the Guru, etc. So he is asking, what indeed is bondage in the Vedantic sense? That is question number 1. Question number 2, Katham esha agataha. Eshaha means this bondage. How did this shackle bind me? How did it happen? Right? Then the third question, Katham asya pratishtha. How does this bondage or shackle persist for such a long time? So what is the reason for its persistence? Right? Because according to Veda, we have the shackle from Anadikala, unknown time, right? Right from birth, even before that previous janmas, etc. So how does it manage to become so persistent and entrenched? Katham asya pratishtha. Katham vimokshaha. How can I break free from this shackle? Or how can I get the freedom? The shackle is also intellectual. The freedom also has to be intellectual. So other emotional benefits also we will derive in the process. Therefore, how do we get freedom from these shackles? Kaha asau anatma. So kosavanatma is there. Kosavanatma. That when you split, it becomes kaha asau anatma. Right? So it should be split correctly. Kosavanatma becomes kaha asau anatma. What do you mean by the word anatma? The non-self or the objective world. Right? So then Paramaha Atma Kaha. What is the self? So we just said Atma has two versions, one which the Shishya looks upon as Jivatma and another which the Guru looks upon as Paramatma. So clarify to me about this two-versioned Atma, Paramatma and Jivatma, and please clarify that to me. So Tayoho Vivekaha Katam. So how can I manage to segregate, differentiate, discriminate, discern, demarcate between them, right? Katam, how can we do that, right? So the segregation is not going to be physical. It has to be an internal intellectual exercise. So the whole thing is a cognitive process. So how is it going to be accomplished? Etad uchyatam. Hey Guru, may you please answer these 7 questions. In fact, the rest of the Vivekachudamani text is the answer to these 7 questions only. So if possible, take a printout of the slide and keep it in front of you, because we're going to keep referring to this and answering each of these questions only, right? So what indeed is bondage? How did this shackle bind me? What is the reason for its persistence? How can I get freedom from it? What is the non-self, anatma, and what is atma? How can I differentiate, discern this atma and anatma? So now the teacher is going to start his answers. को नाम बन्धः कथमेष आगतः कथं प्रतिष्ठास्य कथं विमोक्षः को सावनात्मा परमः क आत्मा तयोर्विवेकः कथमेतदुच्यताम्. So we are now entering the 71st verse. So in between, we've had to skip so many verses, right? It's a very elaborate kind of prakarana grantha. Yad bodhavyam tavedanim.
Yad bodhavyam tavedanim.
Atmanatma vivechanam.
Atmanatma vivechanam.
Taduchyate maya samyak.
Taduchyate maya samyak.
Shrutvatmanyavadharaya.
Shrutvatmanyavadharaya.
So Guru is beginning his reply, which is the Vedantic teaching. So he begins with the last one, right? The 7th question. How do you differentiate Atma and Anatma? Right? He's taking the questions in a different order so that he can logically go. So he is trying to answer the 7th question first. So therefore he says, Yat Atma Anatma Vivechanam Tava Bodhavyam. The topic of differentiating Atma and Anatma is to be known by you for liberation. Idani Maya Tat Uchyate. Now in the beginning, right? Answer to that will be given by me, the teacher, he's saying, right? And what should the student do? Samyak Shrutva. May you listen carefully. So teacher says, I am going to give my best effort to communicate. It's equally important that you put in your best effort to listen and receive the message. Therefore, the Guru says, Samyak Shrutva. May you listen with 100% attention. Atmani avadharaya. And may you affirm or may you register the message very well in your mind. Right? Atmani here means the mind. Atmani avadharaya. May you register, affirm in your mind. Thus the Guru introduces the topic of Atma Anatma Viveka in the following verses. So the next one that we are going to see is the 5th one. Kaha asau anatma. Panchikritebhyo bhutebhyah.
Panchikritebhyo bhutebhyah.
Sthulebhyah purvakarmana.
Sthulebhyah purvakarmana.
Samutpannamidam sthulam.
Samutpannamidam sthulam.
Bhogayatanam
Bhogayatanamaatmanaha.
Avastha jagarastasya.
Avastha jagarastasya.
Sthularthanubhavo yataha.
Sthularthanubhavo yataha.
So to differentiate Atma and Anatma, the Acharya has to clearly define both, right? Of these two, he feels he should take up Anatma part first. So he's going to later talk about Atma also. So he takes up Kaha Asau Anatma. That was the fifth question. He takes that question as a part of Atma and Atma Viveka. So what is Anatma? And we have seen while discussing verse 24, Anatma is non-self. The entire objective universe is Anatma. Even though the entire objective universe is Anatma, here the Acharya wants to discuss only the body, mind, sense complex. Because the external world is not really a subject of controversy. So external world is object, Shastra also accepts, students also accept, there's no controversy. The point of controversy is only regarding the body, mind, sense complex, which we claim as self, the Atma, but which the Shastra points out is Anatma only. Therefore, the Shastric Anatma, which we have misunderstood as Atma, that he wants to point out and say that it is only an object and not a subject, the Atma. Therefore, he is going to take up the body, mind, sense complex Anatma for discussion first. Atma will be discussed later. So even though the Acharya is going to talk about Atma later, for the sake of communication, right? And so that we understand this better, we have to get the understanding of what Atma is before we enter this portion, right? So for talking about Atma, first what do? We first introduce our own physical body. So we know that the physical body is also made up of the same elemental materials or matter that make up the external objects. So the elements that form the external world is used for creation of this body also. So body is a material entity, right? So, but I find a difference between, say, this desk on which the laptop is there and this body. While the table is inert and unconscious, our body is sentient, a varying conscious entity. So body is a conscious entity means the body has consciousness. So when you say a red flower, what does it mean? Red is an adjective. So redness is the part that describes, the adjective describes the noun, right? So body is a conscious entity means what? The body has got consciousness. So Vedanta focuses on that consciousness principle, which is going to be the central topic or subject matter of the entire Vedanta. So the consciousness which is in the body, which we are taking for granted, you have to understand what it is because it is a mysterious entity. We are not able to smell it. We are not able to touch it, right? It is mysterious to lay people. It is also mysterious to scientists who have been researching for decades, perhaps for centuries. Right? They keep on putting forth so many theories of consciousness, right? So it comes under, we as Vedantists accept that it doesn't come under the normal Laukika Vishya and it is Apaurusheya Vishya, a subject matter which is beyond the human instruments. The Vedantins accept that. They say, okay, scientists can keep on going on their quest for many centuries. They've done it, fine. But they've still not found what it is, right? They say it's the hard problem to solve, etc. So even there, between psychologists and doctors, they have their own, problems and conflicts. So this is an Apaurusheya Vishya. We agree, a subject matter which is beyond the human instruments of knowledge. So the traditional approach is whatever we are not able to understand with our pramanams, we turn to Veda. Because Veda reveals things which are not available for conventional pramanams. So the very definition of Veda is Pratyakshenanu mityava yastupayo na buddhyate enam vindanti vedena tasmad vedasya vedata. Okay. So Sayanacharya, he gives an introduction to the Veda, Vedic commentary and defines Veda in this, right? In his Veda Bhashyam. So the very definition is that which gives the knowledge of such a subject matter which is not available through any other means of knowledge. Here Pratyaksham, Anumitya, all of them are listed here, right? Few of them. So there's so many things in this creation which are beyond the instruments of knowledge, and we need to be humble enough to accept that and use the Veda which is available for us to understand this, right? So to use that intelligence, right? So very important. So through sensory perceptions, anumana, observation, gathering data, science, none of these is going to help, right? So Vedanta says that use the Veda Pramanam, an instrument of knowledge, a source of unique knowledge. And if you see the Vyutpati is the etymology of that word Veda, is Veti Anena iti Vedaha. So it means it's a source of unique knowledge. We understand so many things, right? Veti, and through which we understand so many things. That is Veda. And consciousness happens to be a mysterious entity, and it is just in a simplest form, it is awareness of internal and external existence. That's what it is defined as in our scientific world, right? However, for many millennia, people have been searching for something beyond that, and there are opinions which keep differing, right? But here, the Veda tries to define this and give us a way. It is trying to make it clear to us as to what is this consciousness, right? So, the mysterious, elusive consciousness Vedanta talks about, right? It has its own message and the way it reveals, right? So, Swamiji has actually put together by extracting this teaching from various Upanishads. Only as you go through all the Upanishads, you realize how nicely he is like kind of like that centrifuge, right? He's kind of put it in that and taken it out and given it in this form. And it's so simple to understand. So the body has consciousness. But what is the relationship between body and consciousness? According to Vedanta, there is no relationship at all, because body is clearly matter and consciousness is a non-material principle. So consciousness is neither matter nor is it a material connected to matter. So therefore, Vedanta says consciousness is not a part of the body like hands or legs. It's also not an attribute or property of the body like the physical features like body, color, skin, etc. It's not the product of the body like nail, hair, or the waste that the body produces, right? Body applies to any type of matter, but the first feature is basically consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body. Okay, it's not a material principle. Then what is it then, right? So the consciousness is an independent or independently existent non-material principle, which we call a spiritual principle, and it pervades the body, which is otherwise, insentient, and makes the body sentient, as though the sentiency belongs to the body, right? It's exactly like the moonlight. We experience the moonlight as though the moonlight belongs to the moon. It is as though belonging to the moon. In reality, it is the light of the sun, which is only reflected by the moon. So consciousness is also an independent principle that pervades and enlivens the body. So this is the second feature. The next one is a mind-boggling feature. It says, basically each one of these is very deep, right? And it helps in Atma, Anatma, Viveka. So the third feature is consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body, which means consciousness extends beyond the body also. It doesn't say how far. Why? Because it is all pervading. Consciousness is an all pervading spiritual principle which is not confined to the body. It extends beyond the body also, right? And the fourth feature is it continues to exist even after the body perishes. Another mind-boggling revelation. How? Because if consciousness is an attribute of the body, the attribute will disappear along with the body. So when the body dies, like the color, the parts of the body all go, consciousness also should go, if it was an attribute of the body. But according to Vedanta, since consciousness is neither a part, product, or property of the body, it continues to exist even after the destruction of the body, right? Therefore, consciousness is an eternal spiritual principle which survives the death of the body. In fact, even after the death of the entire universe, pralayam, consciousness continues. It is eternal, right? So, then the last one, which is not relevant here, but it is important to note, is that even after the death of the body, the surviving consciousness, which is around, is not accessible, not because it is not there. It is because of the absence of a body medium through which it can transact, right? So that is the reason. So it's an absolute principle by itself. It is transcendental, but it needs a medium to express itself. So these are the 5 features of consciousness. Extremely important for a Vedanta student to remember this, right? So, body is anatma, mind is anatma, sense organs are anatma. You name anything, whatever we know conventionally, they are all anatma, made up of matter. But blessing that anatma body mind sense complex is the all-pervading spiritual principle, the transcendental principle, the consciousness. Thus, every individual, every living being is a mixture of atma and anatma, matter and spirit. Every living being, not just human being. So a mixture of atma, which is transcendental, all-pervading, and the empirical anatma, spirit and matter mixture, right? So we need to learn to differentiate these two, right? And in Gita, we see this. Kleshodi katarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkam dehavad bhiravapyate. It is not easy. It is difficult, right? Especially for people with bodily attachment, to understand this is very difficult. So Vedanta is unable to introduce God as this consciousness. Look at the beauty of this, because it is too abstract for the beginner to comprehend. So Vedanta is concerned that students may drop the study because it is so difficult to understand God as this abstract consciousness. Therefore, initially, to answer to the other gentleman who talked about Manda, Bhakti, etc. So, therefore, initially, it compromises and introduces God as something else instead of introducing God as consciousness. What does the Veda say? In fact, in one of the Bhashyams, you find this. Nirvishesha param brahma sakshat kartu manishwaraha e mandastenu kampyante savishesha nirupanaihi iti. So, for those people, the lower level sadhakas, here the word manda is used, lower level sadhakas who are unable to comprehend the nirvishesha Brahman, the Brahman without any attributes, right? Veda shows compassion by using descriptions and using attributes, savisheshanam. So, with the help of the spiritual or scriptural study, we gradually grasp the principle. Vedanta helps us through karma and upasana, varieties of meditation. We have to make the mind more and more subtle to grasp the abstract consciousness. And for this reason, Chandogya Upanishad actually says, try space meditation, because space is as almost as abstract as or nearly as abstract. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near, but the closest that it can get to as the consciousness. So meditation on Akasha is considered to be very, very good and superior. So having thus differentiated Atma and Anatma, the Upanishad actually says, Chandogya Upanishad says that you should start disclaiming the body as yourself, because all along you've practiced claiming the body as ourselves. This habit, which we have to gradually drop, which will, like the identification with the Anatma, you should drop and you should practice claiming the abstract consciousness principle as the Atma. I should be thoroughly convinced that I am the consciousness and consciousness principle alone, right? And Swamiji often quotes this. Apparently, this is a Western philosopher or I don't know, author who says, we are not human beings seeking spiritual experience. Rather, we are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience, right? What a profound statement. So basically, I am this Atma, the spirit. So I am using the Anatma purely for transactions, like using costume, gadget, etc. That's why in Naishkarmya Siddhi, the word, Sureshwaracharya uses the word kanchukam, an overcoat. Let the body Anatma be the coat, right? So huge samsara. And that is what was said here in this shloka 24, which we saw just before entering this, Ajnana Yogat Paramatmanastava. So misidentification is the problem. So thus Atma, the consciousness principle, right, which the normal person understands as a finite entity, is a problem. So from an Ajnani angle, the same Atma is called Jivatma. From a Jnani angle, this Atma is called Paramatma. When we mistake the self as a limited being, we call it Jivatma. When we understand the self as limitless, the same thing is called Paramatma. So Atma is using the Anatma medium as Kanchukam, an overcoat, right? So the Guru is telling about this Anatma body, I will talk first, right? So Vedanta Shastra also divides the body into several components. One division, and different methodologies are there. One division is Shariratrayam, threefold bodies, gross body, subtlest Karana Shariram, etc. We'll see that. And on basis of function also it divides, which is Panchakosha, right? So Shariratrayam is one classification, Kosha Panchakam is another classification. Whatever be the classification, it is the same body, it is Anatma. So first he wants to talk about the grosser body, right? Which we call as the normal body, right? And we've seen this in Vedantic text, Tattva Bodha, we have seen this, right? So basically we are going to see the different bodies. And of course, we have seen in the Vedic cosmology, that creation part also we saw how it took so long for the evolution of the universe and how the order of creation, etc. The world had to evolve and it doesn't happen, suddenly. How it happens, the manifestation happens. All these Upanishads describe the order of creation, etc. The creation gradually evolves. So before the creation, two things were there according to Vedanta. One is the consciousness principle, which is eternal and all-pervading. That spiritual principle was always there. And then all the rest in seed form, from which the entire creation manifested. So that seed form is called Maya. And out of that material Maya, you can call it energy or you can call it matter in absolute unmanifest form. From that Maya, the universe evolved in two stages, right? So it happened just as from the seed, first a plant comes, which is an intermediary stage. Then from the plant, tree comes. Similarly, from the universal seed, first a plant-like creation and then the tree-like creation happens. So a lot of descriptions of, Sukshma Bhutani, Stula Bhutani, all that is there. So we will get into the creation part and the Shariratrayam part in the next class. Because I'll stop here. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Please note some of these things here. I don't want to miss a class on 3rd March and 17th March. So I'm planning to have the class on 5th and 19th. In case any of you are not able to attend the live class, extremely sorry about the inconvenience. We can upload the recording and you can listen to it before the next class on Sunday. Hopefully you will have time for that. So just make a note of this. We will be sending you emails. I've also put some tentative summer plan also. You can make note of this. And somebody had asked for the suggested course of study. So I have put down whatever is there in the Shastra Prakashika app here. It will be uploaded as a PDF, so you can take a look at it.